Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We have an awesome guest today, Dino Dogan, co-founder of Triber, who is an excellent presenter and a very animated character. And so we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to try to integrate a little video. We're trying to do it formally through the webinar software here, but not finding the option that I found earlier. So maybe Dino will just throw his own image up on the screen and wave to us once in a while since he's sharing his screen. But anyway, welcome, like I said, and oh, there he is. He's going to say hello. There you are. Hi, Dino. Say hello.
We have to improvise, though. Go to webinar. I don't see the option for the PowerPoint and video, so.
Yeah, even if I could option for video in the GoToWebinar, I don't think we could do both at the same time anyway. And it's a shame because I'm wearing my T-shirt today.
Nice.
But I'll have to show that off another time. So we are recording this because several people told me they wouldn't be able to make it at this hour, but they wanted to get the recording. So we're rolling tape, if it's still called that. So I want Dino to briefly tell us about Triber, but that's not really what this presentation is about. This is about insane loyalty, how to get people fanatically addicted to you. It sounds like a bit of a stretch, but it is a really good presentation. I saw this at NMX earlier this month, which is the New Media Expo, used to be called Blog World. Dino was one of the presenters there in Vegas, and it was one of the most popular sessions by far. There were people spilling out the door trying to come in to see this session. It was standing room only, and there wasn't even standing room. It was awesome. So, and it really dives into the psychology behind marketing, and that I just find fascinating. You know, we talk about all these different marketing tactics and stuff, but to dive in and talk about the psychology of it and find out what really makes people tick, I think is just so cool. So right before I hand it over to Dino, I'm going to let you know that you can ask questions because we're going to have Q&A at the end, and encourage you to use the question and answer feature here in GoToWebinar for that, as opposed to the chat feature because it's a little easier for me to organize, and I'll present the questions to Dino at the end. So go ahead and send them throughout, and we'll get to as many as we can afterwards. So with that, I hand it to you, Dino.
Thank you, Pam. As Pam asked me to do a short spiel on Triber, so I'll keep it really short. It's a platform for bloggers. It's for content distribution. If you have a blog, you should go check it out. That's my pitch. Done. Now, let's talk about, what's that?
Short, sweet, and to the point. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Insane loyalty. About 2 years ago, I was reading a really great book by Gabe Zickerman called Game-Based Marketing. It's like, even today, it's cutting-edge stuff in terms of marketing. It's gamification. I don't know if a lot of you know this, but the second largest Wikipedia site is World of Warcraft site. World of Warcraft wiki, right? So game makers like World of Warcraft or like Farmville and so on use these psychological principles to get their community, get their players engaged. And player is just another word for customer or a client or an audience and so on. So Gabe Zickerman wrote this book about these principles that are being used by these game makers who have now evolved over 30 years, combining psychology with the online, computer interaction type of deal. And it's a really great book. It's very systematically laid out. It's a tremendous read. I highly recommend it. But as I was reading it, a documentary came on my TV. It was about Jonestown Massacre. Jim Jones took like 1,000+ people to South America. They established their community there, and he convinced like 900+ people to commit suicide. They drank the Kool-Aid. That's where the expression comes from. So all of a sudden, this book I was reading kind of paled in comparison to the kind of loyalty that this individual, Jim Jones, was able to get from his followers. And follower is just another word for player or a customer or a client or an audience member, right? So So then I started looking at cults. One was Jim Jones's cult. There's Heaven's Gate. Manson is another individual that I've kind of researched a lot. So what I found is that these principles that are being used by cult leaders are the same principles that are being used by some of the biggest brands out there. And in fact, I think that's a causation, not a correlation. They are the biggest brands because they do use these cult-like principles, right? So that's where this whole thing came from. I've applied many of these principles, and oh my God, do they work. So let me define insane loyalty. If level 1, and this is my definition, obviously you can create any kind of definition of your own if you like. If level 1 is getting someone to buy from you, and I say buy in a very general sense, I am selling you the idea that it behooves you to stay here for the next 30 minutes, right? I'm selling you on that idea right now. So buying in a very general term, kind of way. If level 1 is getting someone to buy from you, and level 2 is getting someone to buy from you repeatedly, and most texts and conversations around customer loyalty revolve around that level 2 loyalty. Buy 10, get 1 free kind of loyalty. Get that repeat customer going, right? Most texts revolve around that level 2 loyalty, but we're not talking about level 2. We're going to go way up. Level 3 loyalty is getting people to advocate for you, right? Getting people to, even if they're not necessarily buying your product or service or whatever, to advocate for you. So I think a really good example for that is Apple. I know a lot of people who advocate for Apple. In fact, I was one of those people without actually owning the Apple product, right? Well, now I do. Now I'm all Apple, but there was a time. Oprah, for me, is I'm a level 3 loyalist to Oprah. I advocate for Oprah all the time. I talk about Oprah all the time, but I've never seen her show. I've never purchased a single magazine, any of that stuff. So level 3 loyalty is getting people to advocate for you. And level 4 loyalty is insane loyalty. And insane loyalty, I define it as getting people to make choices in your favor to their own detriment. So I'll repeat that. Getting people to make choices in your favor to their own detriment. All right? I know, right? But we do it all the time. I had a conversation with Barry Barnes yesterday. He's the author of Everything I Know About Business I've Learned from the Grateful Dead. The interview is up on my site now. He quit his job and followed Grateful Dead for almost 20 years. I mean, talk about making choices in their favor to your own detriment, right? Of course, the customer, the audience, the client, the audience, right? They don't see it as their own detriment, right? They're doing what they want to do. From the outside looking in, it looks like a crazy thing to do, right?
Right, right.
So I made myself a cup of coffee, so I'm awake.
Go ahead, take a sip. That's all right. You mean you're not naturally this energetic? You actually need that?
No, I just started my coffee, so it's going to get worse.
Oh, my goodness.
So the difference between the principles that we're going to discuss is isolation and intensity. So when a cult applies these principles, they apply it in isolation. This is why a lot of cults are a kind of gated communities, or they move away and whatnot. This is what brands do every day. They try to isolate their message as much as possible in your brain. And they do this by incessantly repeating their message any chance they get, right? This is standard advertising. They're trying to isolate you in a way, isolate you from receiving any other message. So the difference that we have between how we're going to apply these principles and how cults apply these principles is we don't have the benefit of isolation, and also our intention is different. Our intention is not to get our followers to murder somebody or to commit suicide or anything like that. Our intention is to get customers to buy from us repeatedly, be loyal to us, to advocate for us, and even make choices in our favor, even if it is to their own detriment. And I know that sounds weird, but I make choices to my own detriment every day. When I pay $6.15 for a quad tall skin caramel macchiato upside down with light caramel drizzle, I'm making choices in Starbucks' favor to my own detriment, because I can get just as good a cup of coffee at my house for almost free, or someplace else for a couple of dollars. Okay, and then the intensity. Isolation and intensity is, play an important role here. You can apply any of these principles to a lesser or greater degree. And then depending on depth of the degree, it's gonna, you're gonna get kind of a return on degree type of deal. If you dial it up to 10, then the reaction is going to be very great, high, very intense. If you dial it up just a little bit, the reaction, the loyalty is going to be okay. So keep that in mind. Oh, and the other thing I should point out is that these principles are like gravity. They're always present. We just don't always notice them. And I think once we talk about it, you're going to start noticing them everywhere. So the first one I want to talk about is polarity. Us and them, the yin and the yang, the good versus evil, right? Some of the most fanatical audience members are sports fans. And sports is basically laid out in this us versus them kind of polarity fashion. Soccer fans in Europe are certainly insane, right? Soccerites talk about making choices in their favor to their own detriment, right? Every time there's a riot, the teams, the sport gets a bump because news covers this stuff worldwide. The teams and the players, they become more popular because of it. So sports is a really good example of positioning of us versus them. But it can happen anywhere, anytime, and I'm going to talk about that. So one of my favorite examples is Gap. In 1969, Gap opened its doors for the first time. It was in San Francisco, and they captured their entire philosophy, their entire mantra, their entire marketing strategy in 3 little letters. Gap. Gap as in generational gap. Gap as in these are not your father's genes gap. So if you think back to 1969, it was perhaps the greatest chasm between 2 generations, the World War II generation and the hippie generation, right? The generational gap has never been, arguably, and a lot of sociology professors have actually argued this point for me. The generational gap has never been greater than between the World War II generation and the hippie generation, right? They grew up, the World War II generation was born into depression, 1930s depression. They grew up in Second World War. They lived through the Cold War in the 50s, 1950s, right? They had kids in 1950s during that plasticity and American Dream and Stepford Wives and all of that stuff. Their kids were born into this, and by 1960s, these kids the pendulum swung the other way in a, counterculture, right? Counterculture movement. Pendulum swung all the way to the other side, and by end of 1960s, It was the hippies and love and all of that stuff, right? So the generational gap was indeed very great, and Gap, the company, the clothing company, tapped into it with vengeance. I attribute tremendous amount of their success to the fact that they declared a stance. We are for the new generation. We are not for the old farts. They dared to take a stand, and it paid for them in a big way. They are the second largest clothing retailer in the world now, right? Obviously, because they are now part of the establishment, they have been for a couple of decades now, the whole divisive message has been diluted, obviously, but their initial success can be directly attributed to the fact that they took a stand. Now, Gap is an important lesson because it's very important to understand that we don't create polarity. Polarity already exists. We need to find it and tap into it, right? We need to align ourselves with the existing polarity. That's a very important point to make. I'm sorry, Pam?
It's a really hard thing to get people to develop new beliefs, but you can easily tap into their existing beliefs.
Bingo. Bingo. Exactly. So that's a very important point to make, and I'll give you several other examples that will follow this logic. So here's one. Democrats versus Republicans, right? Both parties are very much focused on their base. They have been for a long time. They are divisive. They are, you know, the point here is politicians don't want you to rationally weigh out your decisions, right? They want you to align, and they want you to stick with the one party, and they don't want you to. They want to keep your emotional brain engaged at all times, because if your emotional brain is not engaged, they are in danger of you making a rational decision, and they don't want that. So
of course.
that's one example. Christopher Hitchens is one of my favorite examples. Christopher Hitchens, he was a professor at one of those fancy British colleges. I forget. Yeah. He's an atheist with credentials. I mean, he's been a noted atheist for many years, all his life. And in the 90s, I believe, he published a book called God Is Not Great. And I just wish I was the, what do they call it, acquisition editor for the publisher when a God Is Not Great manuscript came my way. Because I knew that as, you know, as soon as you see a title like that by someone like Christopher Hitchens, you know that book is going to be a bestseller because it's divisive, because it takes a stand, because it taps into the existing polarity between people who believe in God and people who do not, right?
Right. You don't even need to you don't even need to go beyond the cover to know it's going to be a bestseller.
Exactly, and it was a bestseller, and not only was it a bestseller, but it spawned a ton of other literature. Some was, you know, simple newsletters, some were booklets, some were entire books written as the antithesis to God Is Not Great, thus furthering the, you know, the popularity of the original work.
Wow.
And the whole idea was religious folk wanted their followers to have a kind of ammunition to defend against the arguments brought up in Christopher Hitchens' book, God Is Not Great. You know, if you find yourself at a party and you're engaged in light conversation about whether God exists or not, you can bring up these points.
Real quick while you're switching screens. For those of you who have just joined us, some of us joined us a little late, I just want to let you know that we're going to have Q&A at the end here. So if you hear anything that, brings up a question in your mind, certainly use the question and answer feature here to submit it, and we will get to as many as we can at the end.
You do a great job moderating. You always have.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So here's another example of polarity. Hi, I'm a Mac. I'm a PC. Right? Apple is one of the most recognizable brands in the world. They are one of the most profitable companies in the world, and they've always tapped into the polarity principle. Every chance they got. This being one such example. One of the examples that I used in my talk at NMX, and I mentioned that these principles are like gravity. They can be applied anytime, anywhere, right? So to put that theory to the test, I asked myself, how the fuck do I apply polarity principle right now? And there it is, right? Profanity is a very divisive thing for people. Some people will say, oh my God, that's kind of, that's rude. He didn't have to go there. I liked him until he said fuck, right? But then the other half of the people will say, oh, he's just like me, So you can always, and speakers do this on purpose because it's such a win-win for them. If you say, oh, he said profanity, so he's just like me, and I can trust him, a salesperson that's trying to sell you shit will never say shit, right? They're going to try to be polite. So when you say shit, a lot of times you'll see people's guard just melt. It's very interesting. Try it. And the other half that they're gonna, that have these preconceived notions about profanity, they're not gonna like it, and they're still gonna talk about it afterwards. I can't believe Dino said shit in his talk, right? Dino said shit. Oh, that sounds great. I'll go see that speaker, right? So, I'm sorry.
I don't think it's a problem with our crowd because we didn't lose anybody. Nobody dropped off the webinar when you dropped the F-bomb.
Excellent. So profanity is one of those, and I'm also going to challenge myself to give you a from the trenches kind of example whenever I can. So as the founder of Triber, we've tapped into this polarity from the get-go. And this was 2011, about 8 months before the whole 99%er movement even started or was in the news. We used that verbiage to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. We said 1% of superstar bloggers get 99% of attention. And their content doesn't warrant that kind of attention. The truly great content I find on small blogs, right? So we essentially rebuked big bloggers and big blogs. We said, you people suck. We're building Triber for small bloggers. And it worked like gangbusters. Our audience, identified with it. We didn't invent this polarity. This polarity already existed out there. This sentiment already existed out there. All right? Huffington Post publishes like 50 posts per day. You throw that much shit at the wall, something's going to stick, but most of it is just garbage, right? So it's blogs like that that even though some Huffington Post authors are on Triber, and I've actually considered booting them off Triber, and I've actually written posts about it as well. About my internal struggle over that. But this polarity, we used it, especially initially, we had to sort of preach it again and again. And I mean, to say that it worked would be an understatement. So there. Oprah. Oprah is one of my favorite examples of, well, everything.
But you've never seen her show.
I've never seen her show. I don't care to see her show. I don't need to see her show. To know that she's awesome. Yeah. So Oprah is a very polarizing figure, and I'm not going to go off on the typical stuff. Oh, she's a chunky. Let's call it fat. She struggled with weight. Black woman who broke into the TV daytime thing, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go off on that. That's standard stuff. The truly interesting part about Oprah is that she is a very polarizing figure. And she's a polarizing figure in the sense that her content is very polarizing. It's very polarizing in a subtle way, in such a way that Oprah does not create content that is geared towards guys like me, or guys, period, right? When I ask a question of the audience, when I do this talk live, and I ask them, who's Oprah's audience? Inevitably, someone will yell out, housewives. And they're right. Housewives are Oprah's audience. She caters to that audience with surgical precision, thus rejecting everybody else.
Ah, that's a real subtle way of tapping into polarity.
Absolutely. It's a very subtle way of tapping into the polarity. You're essentially ignoring an entire segment and hyper focusing on, your segment, thus rejecting the other segment. So it's a very subtle, it's a very kind of exclusive way of, tapping into your segment or polarizing. Which really, which really leads me into the next principle, which is customer avatar. This is the principle number 2. And Oprah is a great example of someone who understands her customer. Again, customer in a very general sense of that word, right? Anytime you're talking to your friend, you're selling him on the idea that your story is worth listening, right? And your friend is either buying it or not. So, and in that moment, he's a customer. So, I mean that in a very general sense, right? Customer avatar, understanding who your customer is. So, this is a really old marketing exercise, right? Creating a customer avatar. So it usually involves, figuring out who your customer is, the gender, male or female, the age range, 18 to 25 or whatever, right? Locale. Are they East Coasters, West Coasters, Middle Country, someplace else, whatever? Socioeconomic status, race, what else? Help me out there.
Education, yeah, like you said, socioeconomic status, the basic demographics. I mean, anything that gets into preferences are like psychographics, but just your stats of who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Oprah understands who her customer is, and she caters to that customer. And we should all strive to be like Oprah. See? Level 3 loyalty, right? I advocate for Oprah. You may have never viewed Oprah in this light before. So this, this kind of, boosts her brand. You need level 3 loyalists. So you need to develop the customer avatar. The problem that a lot of companies are facing is they outsource. And I don't mean to India, but they just outsource it to somebody else. They outsource avatar creation to the marketing department or something like that, which is a huge mistake because, by the time marketing department figures it out, and they report back to you. It's like playing telephones, right? When you were a kid, you played telephones. You go 3, 4, 5 levels deep, and you know, the original phrase is completely, you know, lost its fidelity. The same thing happens here. The best way to create a customer avatar is to be your own customer. That is the best way. And when I say be your own customer, I'm talking about the guy or the gal, the person that's setting the vision for the company, right? The vision setter. That person needs to be the customer as well. And you can see why this becomes a problem, especially for big companies, right? CEOs of companies they're not the ones setting the vision. They stay there for 5 years. You don't cast the vision for 5 years. I mean, you might, but that's a short-term vision. And they're usually concerned about things from quarter to quarter. So you can, and they, you know, big companies make a lot of big products, and CEOs have to rely on marketing departments and whatnot to figure out who the customers are. But that is not ideal. This is what I'm saying. What is ideal is to be your own customer. The guy you guys are looking at right now, I forgot his name, but he was the CEO of Sony in the 80s. And he is the guy that envisioned the Walkman. He's holding it in his hand. I don't know if you guys can see it, but he's got a badge on his collar that says, "I heart Sony," which I think is pretty funny. So this guy was on these you know, long flights, doing business, you know, going from, you know, one side of the world to the other, and he had a very specific taste in music. He really loved classical music and opera. And
you got Oprah on the brain.
I got Oprah on my brain at all times, absolutely. And he didn't like the music and the entertainment options on the plane, and he wanted a portable audio device, right? And he asked his engineer to make him a portable audio device. You know, Steve Jobs gets a lot of credit for, you know, iPod, right? But, you know, MP3 players have existed before, and before MP3 players there were Discmen, and before Discmen there were Walkman, tape players, right? So iPod was just an incremental step in technology. And the whole iTunes thing, you know, doing song distribution from the cloud essentially, well, that was Napster's idea, right? Steve Jobs' idea was to charge for it. So Steve Jobs gets a lot of credit for this stuff, but the guy that truly made a leap in logic, the guy that truly had the vision was this guy, Sony CEO. And there was no market research done to see what the viability of such product is, of Walkman, right? I mean, people didn't know something like this was even possible, right? How would they even find out, you know, how people felt about it? It didn't exist, right? But the day before Walkman was released, nobody needed a Walkman. The day after Walkman was released, everyone needed a Walkman, right? There was no R&D. There was no market research. He just said, make this go to market. They did, and they dominated the marketplace for almost a decade.
All because he wanted it.
All because he wanted it, right?
For himself. For
himself, yeah. Now, you know, scratching your own itch, I mean, this is all we're talking about here. And from the trenches, Triber is my itch. Triber exists because I wanted something like that to exist. As a blogger, I wanted something like that to exist. It didn't, so we made it. right?
So you were your own customer.
I am my own customer, absolutely. We actually created a customer avatar when we started, and we even gave our customer avatar a name. His name is Dino. And I understand Dino's fears and desires and passions and all of that stuff. So, you know, if I'm pleasing Dino, then I'm pleasing thousands of other bloggers out there. So, scratching your own itch.
I like it.
Now, you may not always be able to do that, right? So, if you're not able to be your own customer, then it behooves you to really sit down and develop, brainstorm, figure out your customer avatar, right? And if you do, it will pay off in a big way. So a company that I like to bring up as an example of someone who really understood their customer is Pinterest. We all know Pinterest, I believe, I hope. It's a picture bookmarking type of deal. It's an online scrapbook, essentially, right? And Pen, you and I did a Pinterest webinar a while back, right?
Yeah, I think one of them was on Pinterest.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about the Pinterest avatar, and it was a female, 25 to 37 or something like that, going through from the middle of the country, so not non-coastal. Facebook and Twitter get a lot of coastal population. Pinterest is very middle of the country. What else? Going through either a wedding or whatnot, hyper-social, right?
Well, primarily female. I don't know if you said that already. Female, you know, visual.
Yes, yes, right. So, let's say I'm Pinterest, right? I'm looking at the current landscape, and I decide there's empty space here. There's this middle of the country female population that's visual, that's scrapbooking already. They're just not doing it online yet, right? This is the space we want to move into, right? Now, if I've created this customer avatar and I understand this customer avatar, then I can take the next logical leap. I can ask myself, okay, so how do we make this customer extremely comfortable on our site, right? How can we make them come to our site and feel like they're visiting an old friend? And the way they did that is by creating a site that resembles a cherry pie. If you look at my slide right now, you'll notice that it almost doesn't look like Pinterest because it's missing the cherry red, right? You know, highlights and buttons and whatnot, and the crust-colored rest of the space.
Ah, I didn't even notice that, crust-colored. I noticed the red, obviously, is their signature red, but the crust color.
Yeah, yeah. These things affect us all the time. We just kind of, you know, tend to be oblivious to it. So I mean, that's brilliant because as a new company, right, Pinterest faces a problem, right? They don't have the benefit of Disney and Coke. These companies that have existed for decades, these companies that people have grown up with, these companies that managed to create emotional ties with us when we were kids with fucking pandas and whatnot, you know? Pinterest didn't have that, doesn't have that luxury. So they need to tap into the cultural psyche of their target demo. And the cultural psyche of their target demo really likes cherry pie. I mean, who doesn't, right?
Well, who doesn't like it? But it's also very representative of that middle America that you just described.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So that is immediate, feeling of comfort and trust that Pinterest can deliver to its target demo. And it's going to be a turnoff for dudes most of the time because it's a very feminine type of, palette. But that's okay. Dudes are not Pinterest's demo.
It's another very subtle example, like the Oprah one.
In what way?
Very subtle, just like, Oprah doesn't openly say that I am not going to cater my stuff to men. She doesn't openly say that. She just doesn't. And this, too, they don't openly say, they don't make it overly girly or anything like that. They just very subtly make that connection with their target.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you have a new business, right, people keep talking about branding. Branding is bullshit. Branding is just creating an emotional, an emotion inside a customer, right? And a new brand can't do that because, a customer doesn't have emotional response to a new brand. How could it, right? It's new, right? But if you develop a customer avatar and you cater to that customer and, present your brand, with a palette or whatever, in a way that appeals to your customer avatar, I mean, you win right off the bat. It's, Pinterest is a really great example of how they did that. So there. And the last one that I'm going to talk about is status.
So just recap real quick for people who joined us a little late. The three things we're discussing are 3 ways to...
Polarity is one. The second was creating a customer avatar. So going back to my interview with Barry Barnes yesterday, he followed Grateful Dead for a long time. And the reason Grateful Dead allowed their audience members to record the shows is because Jerry Garcia used to go to these, follow this blues musician. I forgot his name. Barry mentioned it, but I forgot his name. And recorded, this guy's shows, performances, took him home, listened to them, and stuff like that. So Jerry Garcia understood what it meant to be able to take the performance back and sort of to own it. And when they started touring, they enabled their audience to do the same because Jerry Garcia was his own customer. So we started with polarity. We talked about creating a customer avatar, better yet, being your own customer, right? And now we're going to talk about status.
And these are 3 ways to build insane loyalty.
Bingo was his name-o. All right. So status, humans are status-seeking animals. Everything goes back to status. If you can imbue your customers with status, you win, right? A go-to move for a lot of sales managers who are trying to motivate their crew to sell is usually, stuff. We'll give you stuff if you meet performance quotas. Flat screen TV, vacation in Hawaii, whatever, right? But a lot more powerful driver of human motivation is status. So we're going to talk about that. A great example of this example has everything kind of tied together is airlines. Now, before I proceed, I just want to thank airline industry and the banking industry for taking the customer service expectations down to a virtual zero. Because, you know, when the rest of us actually show a little bit of care to our customers, the customers are like incredibly grateful. So thank you, airline and banking industry.
For setting the bar really low.
For setting the bar really low, yeah. So in 1991, I believe it was American Airlines who launched the first successful miles program. It enabled people to accumulate miles and redeem those miles for things. Now, if you're engaged in one of these programs, you know that the miles are not all that redeemable. You have to collect a bunch of them before you can redeem. You can redeem it on every third Tuesday during a full moon only. It's pretty nutty. So the miles themselves are really not the point. The airline industry was in trouble. They needed a way to sort of differentiate themselves in the marketplace. They needed a way to uncommoditize. Is that the word? Because flying is a pain in the ass, right? Nobody likes flying. You just have to do it, so you do it. And it doesn't matter what airline takes you there. They all equally suck. So how does someone like American Airlines or Delta or whatever get you to come back again and again? And the answer is, we'll give you some miles. It started there, but it really ended up with status, right? And being a member of their elite Sky Miles program, blah, 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 gives you priority access to check in. That blocked off area is for priority boarding only. So while the rest of us are in line, I like to call it cattle line, right? It's cattle waiting to be boarded. While the rest of us are waiting in line, priority seating, priority boarding members walk right through the corridor in front of everybody, right?
With a little bit of swagger.
Yeah, with a lot of bit of swagger. They get check-in first. They go through security first. When it's boarding time, they get priority boarding to the plane itself, right? And it has all the right elements. For one, it costs virtually nothing for American Airlines or Delta or whatever to apply something like this, to deploy something like this. It costs you some rope, right? That's what it costs you to do this. Yeah. So that's very good for the airline. The other thing is, and this is very important, it's public, right? Status is meaningless unless other people see you with that status. All right?
Yeah, right.
So as you walk down the corridor, it's very important that I'm looking at you as you walk down the corridor, because you walking around like you own the place, and I'm looking at you and I'm like, hey, how's that guy checking in before me? Oh, he has priority boarding program thing. And I'm like, man, what an asshole. I want to be that guy, you know, which is exactly the reaction that Delta and these airlines want you to have. So humans are status-seeking animals. You can virtually create status out of nothing. And it's probably, I will argue that it's the deepest drive that humans possess. It's all about status. Going to my interview with Barry Barnes yesterday, you know, even egalitarian, sort of a flat hierarchical structure, well, it's not hierarchical, right? It was flat structure of the Grateful Dead. It had status, right? Amongst the audience members, the status was how many tapes, audio recordings do you own of the Grateful Dead, right? Or how many shows have you been to, right? If you've been to 100 shows and I've been to 5, then you're the shit and I'm not, right? And within the Grateful Dead organization, the roadies had the highest status. The roadies were the essentials that the Grateful Dead and the audience catered to, because the Grateful Dead did like hundreds of shows per year, and if roadies weren't happy, nobody was happy, right? So much so that the roadies at one point had their own private jet.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys implemented this status thing in Triber recently, and I fell for it right away with the badges. I was like, oh my God, I got to get all the badges I can get. And I kind of, having heard some of your talks before, I caught myself. I'm like, oh my God, he just did to me what he explains all the time.
Yeah, right? And you just wait till we launch Authority Blogger badge.
Oh God.
Right?
He knows what he's talking about. I'm fanatically addicted to Dino.
So let's talk about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, we got to speed through the rest. We've only got about 7 minutes left, and we want to have time to take a couple questions. So now is the time. If you're listening, you have a question, please submit it via the Q&A feature. We're going to breeze through questions at the end.
Yeah, plenty of time. So this will take 5 minutes. So, badges, Foursquare and a bunch of other places are giving you badges. When you visit somebody's blog, they award you a bicycle badge for visiting, right? And you're like, what is this? Right? I don't care about this. I don't care about badges, right? And I'm here to tell you that you do care about badges. You just don't care about badges that are meaningless to you. But you do care about badges that are meaningful to you. So, for example, would you ever buy a Mercedes-Benz without the Mercedes decal? You don't have to answer. I know the answer. You wouldn't, right? You do care about that badge. If you were in the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, you cared about those badges, right?
Oh, yeah.
They were meaningful to you.
Oh, yeah, I had to have the most.
Yeah. So people do care about badges. They just don't care about meaningless badges. And yes, there is a lot of them out there, right? So the thing is, people don't understand why they are deploying these gamification strategies like badges, right? They just see other people doing it, so they're like, oh, we'll give people some badges. But in order to understand what badges people will inherently care about, you have to understand your customer. So on Triber, our customers are bloggers. And one of the badges that we're working on right now is Authority Blogger badge. And you tell me, if you're a blogger and you're on Triber, you tell me you don't want that badge. You do. And you do because it's going to be a manual check. I will have to go through each and every person, check their blog, and make a judgment call of whether or not is deemed authority. So,
wow.
Yeah. So you don't care about badges that are meaningless to you, but you do care about badges. Badges are a sign of status. Look at the Army, right? General, 5-star general. That's just a badge.
Oh, yeah.
Does he care about it? You bet. Do we care about it? Yes, we do.
Uh-huh.
Right? Starbucks, right? Starbucks is a tremendously successful brand, obviously. They can charge premium because when I buy Starbucks and you buy Dunkin' Donuts, I appear higher status than you by just the virtue of drinking Starbucks. Right? By the same token, if I'm using Mac PowerBook, right, and you're using a Dell, for some reason, well, for all the reasons that we named, I appear higher status than the guy next to me who's using Dell. You will infer absolutely nothing about the guy that's using Dell, but you will infer about me. If I'm using a Mac that I'm a creative dude who can afford a PowerBook.
Right. And what was it you said at NMX about the sleeve with the Starbucks?
Well, yeah, the experience, right? It doesn't feel complete unless I've had the cup and then the sleeve that goes with the cup. It doesn't feel like a full experience.
It doesn't feel like Starbucks because like Dunkin' Donuts doesn't do the sleeve. I mean, unless you get a high-end cappuccino. And there you go. It's that status. I have a high-end coffee, so I have a sleeve.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even know that about Dunkin' Donuts because I don't go there.
They only give you the sleeve if you buy a $6 cappuccino or whatever it's called.
Yeah. The thing is, it would be very impolite for me to go up to a female at any place and say, this is how much money I have in the bank. That would show very poor social graces. I can't do that. But I can telegraph my status by driving a Mercedes, drinking a Starbucks, and walking in with a power book. Right? You will immediately infer something different than if I rolled up with a Hyundai, right, carrying a Dell and going into Dunkin' Donuts.
True.
Right? A black card, American Express is the same way, right? If I pull out American Express black card, it feels different, it looks different, it's thicker, it's heavier, right? And those in the know, they know what the black card is. It's unlimited spending and all that stuff. So immediately that telegraphs a higher status. Only certain individuals get this card, and the process is somewhat unknown. So there's a lot of sort of a legend and myth that revolves around issuing of the black card.
I got such a kick out of that when you got to this point in the seminar at NMX, and that guy just had to raise his hand and state that he had all of these examples that you've given, the Mercedes, the black card. He just had to make a, he almost like pretended to have a question just so that he could preface it with, I have all of those.
Yep, right? Not so subtle brag, right?
Right, and you called him on it, which was awesome. That was great.
So just as a quick review, insane loyalty means your customers making choices in your favor to their own detriment. And the three principles we cover is polarity, us against them, good versus evil, right? With sports teams, and I'm a Mac, I'm a PC, and Pepsi challenge, right? Coke sucks, drink Pepsi, right? That's basically what they're saying. We talked about creating a customer avatar. The best you can do is to be your own customer, right? The second best thing you can do is talk to your own customers. So if you're the vision setter, if you're the guy or the girl that sets the vision, you need to be frontline, high touch, talking with your customers to really, truly understand them. There is no substitute. Everything else is subpar. If your marketing department is telling you who your customer is, you're making a mistake. So customer avatar, and then status. Humans are status-driven animals. Facebook, I wasn't even going to talk about online stuff because that's so easy, right? On Facebook, they actually call it update status. So every time you put something, a picture or text, into that box on Facebook, you're, quote, updating your status. What you're doing is you're building their empire with your bricks, but you're updating your status. On Twitter, number of followers. I mean, this stuff is too easy.
Right.
If I have more followers than you, I have a higher status. Never mind that half those followers are bots.
Right.
So those are the three principles. Let's open up the floor for questions.
Great. Excellent. Yeah, if you have a question, real quick, we're tight on time, so we're going to breeze through, but go ahead and submit it in the Q&A section, and we'll do our best to get to it. Dino might even show us his pretty face here on his little video thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sure.
So, all right, so here's a question. It kind of got touched upon, but I'd like to hear a little more. With all these loyalty-building tactics that you explained, how much does the product and or company name come into play? How powerful of a factor can that be? I think you touched upon it with Gap, but I mean, how big of a deal do you think that is?
Well, it depends on the company, right? You know, if it's Apple, then there's already certain you know, emotional response that's already pre-built, certain trust level, all of that stuff. If it's a brand new company, then I have no emotional response. So what is the specific company that we're talking about?
I don't know. That was the question, was just in general, how impactful is the name of the product? Should you maybe even consider changing the name of your product to get more of that insane loyalty, to tap into that polarity more, to you know, tap into your customers more? How important is it?
I mean, it's very important, right? But we'd have to get specific. So here, let me give you my, how do I do this? Minimize, maybe if I minimize. I'm trying to, well, okay, never mind. My Twitter handle is right there. At Dino Dogan.
Yeah, okay. Since we're real time, just real quick, if you can answer this real quick. And towards the beginning, you mentioned intensity, and you know, the more intense you get, the more loyalty you're going to get out of it. What's a quick example of turning up the heat on the intensity? I mean, is that just like being more blatant about tapping into the polarity, or how do you turn up the intensity?
Yeah, so from the examples that we took, right, Oprah is very low intensity, right?
Right.
She doesn't explicitly reject males, right? Whereas Apple is very high intensity, right? Hi, I'm a Mac, I'm a PC, right? So those are two different sides of the intensity.
Gotcha, okay. Really being more blatant about how you're being divisive.
Yep.
I think that's a really scary thing for companies to do, because people, you know, companies often want to be everything to everyone. They want to make everyone happy, but you're never going to make everyone happy anyway. So you might as well be a little more blatant about who you intend to make happy and make them more loyal fans of you.
Look at Chick-fil-A, right?
Oh, well,
I don't know. The CEO came out against, what did he come out against? Gay people or something?
It was homosexuality, I think.
Right. And the next day, it was line out the door in front of Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
They had like a gangbuster quarter because of it.
I wouldn't recommend that particular approach, but you're right. It works. It really works. Yeah. So, all right. So, since we're about to go over time, I just want to, if you want to put your Twitter handle back up there, let you know where you can reach Dino if you think of questions after the fact. He likes to describe himself as ridiculously accessible, which is true. So if you tweet him, he'll tweet you back, or if you email him, he will email you back. And I try to be the same. So my Twitter handle, if you're not already following me, is Pam Ann Marketing, and email is pam@pamannmarketing.com. For those of you who did attend, or even if you weren't able to attend, we are going to be sending out this recording and these slides to anyone who registered. So keep an eye out for that email, and that will also have some of my upcoming events on it. Quick, before I go into my events, Dino, do you have any upcoming events or anything that you want to let us know about that you have going on that's really cool?
February 25th, I'm in Washington, D.C. for Potomac. I'm speaking there. My topic is the new face of the groundswell. It should be a good one. Yeah. So if you're in Washington area or in that area, and it'd be great to see you at Potomac.
Cool, cool. All right. And I have several more webinars coming up, but next week's is a live on-air Google Hangout. So you will be seeing my face, and as well as Lena West, who is someone that Dino actually introduced me to. Her company is called Influence Expansion, and she is an incredible speaker. She specifically likes to help female entrepreneurs. There you go. Talk about polarity. She's very clear in the fact that she has nothing against men, but she chooses to help female business owners, and she has some awesome advice, and she's just another awesome character. So her and I are going to discuss the state of social media in 2013, and we're going to do so live on YouTube in a Google Hangout thing. So that should be very cool. And the details for that, as well as the other ones coming up, are going to be in that email that you'll get today with the slides and the recording. So thank you, everyone, for your time. I know your time is valuable. I hope this was very informational for you. I certainly, even hearing this presentation the second time, I picked up on even more from it. So good stuff, Dino. Thank you so much for being a guest with us. Be sure to check out Triber if you haven't. I love it. If you have questions on it, just let me or Dino know. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Pam.
Thanks. Bye.